Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Noorunisa Maskadi from DIMC. Uh, Today, I want to discuss the topic about nephrotic and nephratic syndrome. So, the overview of my lecture include the basic and initially we discuss the basic anatomy regarding the nephron. Then we discuss about the different classification of glomerular disease. Then we discussed in detail about acute glomerular nephritis. Further on, we discuss about the nephrotic syndrome, and then we compare what is the difference between the nephrotic and the nephrotic syndrome. Okay, so we start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ji. So the basic structure unit of the kidney is a nephron, which is basically composed of glomerulus and tubule. Glomerulus is like this. That is glomerulus capillaries, efferent and afferent arterioles, tuft of capillaries, and a center of mesenterium. This is the tuft capillaries, and between the cells, these are the mesenterium. This is the glomerular part, and this is the tubular part, which is composed of the ascending, which is composed of proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Fanley, and distal convoluted tubule. This is the basic structural unit of a kidney that is called the nephron. Basic function of glomerulus is the filtration of the serum that is passed through of the filtration of the urine that is passed through the glomerulus. And tubule, the basic function of tubule is the reabsorption of a specific material and secretion of a specific material. So basic function of glomerulus is filtration, and tubule is of the resorption and secretion. Today we discuss only about the glomerular diseases, that is the disease that is related to the glomerular part of the nephron. Where glomerular disease is basically classified into the primary glomerular disease and the secondary glomerular disease. In primary glomerular disease, we have glomerular nephritis, acute and chronic both, nephrotic syndrome, and isolated hematuria or proteinuria. While in secondary glomerular nephritis, we have purpura nephritis, lupus nephritis, nephritis secondary to hepatitis B virus infection, and other systemic disorders. And finally, the last one classification of glomerular disease is the hereditary glomerular diseases, that including the congenital nephrotic syndromes and Alport syndromes. So today's topic is basically we concern only with the nephrotic syndrome, basically acute glomerular nephritis and nephrotic syndrome is important at your level. So what is the difference? The nephrotic and nephrotic syndrome, this is not basically the disease. It is basically a group of symptoms. Then when we call nephrotic syndrome, one, there is a combination of symptoms like hematuria, azotemia. Azotemia means raised urea creatinine or disturbed renal function. Hematuria, azotemia, proteinuria, oliguria, edema, and hypertension. Combination of these symptoms we call the nephrotic syndrome. And what is nephrotic syndrome? Nephrotic syndrome is basically high proteinuria. Proteinuria more than 3.5 gram per day. Proteinuria with hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and lipiduria. So nephrotic syndrome is combination of proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, hyperlipidemia, and severe edema. So nephrotic is basically concerned with the proteinuria, and nephrotic when there is blood in the urine. The key with nephrotic is excess of protein in the urine is present in nephrotic syndrome, while excess of the blood, amount of blood in the urine refers to nephrotic syndrome. Okay. Now we discuss what is AG and acute glomerular nephritis. It is one of the causes. There are many different causes of nephrotic syndrome present in different. Nephrotic syndrome is basically present whenever there is disease of the glomerulus that leads to that is associated with hematuria, proteinuria, edema, and hypertension. Then it is called as a nephrotic syndrome. There are different causes, and one of the common cause of acute glomerular nephritis is acute glomerular nephritis. Basically, acute glomerular nephritis refers generally to this is an inflammatory renal disease that affecting the glomerular part of the nephron of each kidney. And acute glomerular nephritis, it is characterized by the abrupt It is basically the symptoms of nephrotic syndrome, like it is present with acutely sudden onset of gross hematuria, azotemia, some sort of hypertension, and some sort of edema and hypertension. Proteinuria is common, and although really it is within the nephrotic range. Nephrotic range is very high. In nephrotic, there is a large amount of high side of proteinuria. Nephrotic range is more than 40 milligram of urine per meter square per hour, whereas with urea protein to creatinine ratio should be more than 2. As compared to the nephrotic syndrome in AGN or acute glomerulonephritis and nephrotic syndrome, proteinuria is usually urine to protein to creatinine ratio is less than 2. Then, although there is proteinuria, but it's not up to the range that is considered more than 2. That is, if protein creatinine ratio is more than 2, it indicates a nephrotic syndrome. Okay. Edema is common in acute glomerulonephritis, and usually it is not due to proteinuria, as in case of nephrotic syndrome. Not is due to hypoalbuminemia. It is most of the time edema in acute AGN or acute glomerulonephritis and nephrotic syndrome is due to renal sodium retention, sodium water retention. Okay, and what is the cause of sodium retention is the decreased renal function. What is I've already told, the basic function of glomeruli is filtration. When filtration is decreased, urine output is decreased, so that leads to that cause retention of sodium and water in the body, that leads to edema. So the basic pathology behind edema in case of nephrotic syndrome or of AGN is not hypoalbuminemia. Basically, it is due to sodium water retention. Okay. One of the most common cause in children of acute glomerulonephritis and nephrotic syndrome is post-infection glomerulonephritis or post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is the most common of acute glomerulonephritis in children. In its classical presentation, the child is usually present between the age of 4 to 6 years, 4 to 10 years, with sudden onset. The history says sudden. Only 1 or 2 days is the history of painless cross hematuria. They often describe it as tea-colored urine, and they usually have a bad past history of streptococcal infection, about 2 weeks in case of more than 4 weeks in case of a skin infection, and within 2 to 3 weeks in case of upper respiratory tract infection with streptococcal organism. Post infection glomerulonephritis occurs postranally. The age group is between 4 to 10 years, as compared to the nephrotic syndrome, in which the age group is usually between 3 to 4 years. Nephrotic glomerulonephritis usually occur in after the age of 4 years. 4 to 10 years is the average range. So, and male to female ratio is more common. Male 2:1. Okay, age, as I already told you, from 4 to 10 years or more. Extended, it's up to from 5 to 15 years. The mortality rate of acute glomerulonephritis, it depends upon the cause. In case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, the mortality is very, very rare. Okay, but when the cause of acute glomerulonephritis is chronic glomerulonephritis or crescent-shaped glomerulonephritis or membranous glomerulonephritis, that the mortality rate is quite high. Prognosis is poor and mortality, but in case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, they have very good prognosis. Most of the cases are self-limited and resolve within 4 to 6 weeks. And the basic etiology in case of acute glomerulonephritis and post-streptococcal, it's basically the immunological mechanism is behind that triggers inflammation and that cause inflammation of the vessels and proliferation of the mesangial tissue. That results that cause, and the inflammatory products cause damage to the basement membrane and mesangium. That's when there is destruction or there is damage to the glomeruli, leads to decreased filtration. Glomerular lesion in the acute glomerulonephritis is the result of glomerular deposition of immune complexes. Basically, the pathology is immune-mediated pathology. So, on gross appearance, the kidneys are usually, when you look at the kidneys and ultrasound, they appear enlarged. 50% of the cases. And gross histopathological changes include swelling of the glomerular tufts and infiltration. And on electron power field, we can see the immunofluorescence deposition of the immunoglobulin and complement over the glomerular part. In a streptococcal infection, there is involvement of the derivative of streptococcal protein. The two strains of the streptococcal organism can cause AGN. One is secondary to streptococcal throat infection, and the other is due to streptococcal skin infection. Streptococcal skin infection is more common. Is more commonly cause acute glomerulonephritis, post-streptococcal acute glomerulonephritis. Streptococcal neuromyelitis may alter the IgG and it behaves like a foreign body. Okay, and so the antibodies are formed against that combines and form the complex, and that complex deposit over the glomeruli. And when this complex, this is streptococcal infection, immunocomplex that deposit of the glomerular region, that's cause both the mesangial and capillary proliferation. When there is proliferation, excess of the proliferation of these cells, and along with the glomerular basement membrane injury, that causes decreased glomerular filtration rate. And when there is decreased glomerular filtration rate, there is decreased output of the fluid. It is called that cause oliguria. And when there is retention of fluid in the body, that leads to edema. And retention of the fluid and sodium, that causes increased blood volume, that leads to hypertension. That is the combination of symptoms in case of acute glomerulonephritis. And due to the immune complex deposit, it also causes injury to the glomerular basement membrane. That leads to hematuria, and that causes hematuria and proteinuria in case of acute glomerulonephritis. So this slide shows the basic pathophysiology behind the post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis infection. So, and the symptoms I repeat again, the common symptoms of AGN or post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis in children usually present the sudden onset of gross painless gross hematuria. It is present in 50 to 70% of the pediatric patient, and the urine is not red color. It is basically the cola color urine, brown black color urine, and they usually present with edema. Edema is present in 85% of the patients, and this edema, basically the edema is not as much as we supposed to see in case of nephrotic syndrome. The asthma, there's usually a mild sort of edema involving whether there is basically present with the periorbital edema at early morning. The edema basically most of the time involving only the face and not all over the body. But in some rare cases and atypical cases, they may present with severe edema that is mimicked about the nephrotic appearance. Other symptoms besides hematuria, edema is hypertension. Hypertension is present in 80% of the affected patients. And proteinuria. Proteinuria is not that up to the mark of nephrotic range, but it is usually present in 20% of the cases. It can be as much as in case of it may near up to the nephrotic syndrome level. But most of the time, in more than 80 to 90% of the cases, proteinuria is mild. It is less than 1 plus or 2 plus, not 4 plus, or not more than usually less than 40 milligram per deciliter per day, okay, per hour. 40 milligram per meter square per hour. Okay, what are the complications? AGN usually they usually present with the presentation is with hematuria, gross hematuria, painless, edema, and they may have hypertension, and they may present with oliguria. Not all the cases are develops complications, but some of the cases, let's see, about 10 to 20% of the patients develop complications, and the common complications in case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is hypervolemia due to retention of water, due to increased circulatory congestion, and it's usually onset within 1 week. And they usually present with the signs of congestive left-sided heart failure or congestive cardiac failure in pulmonary edema. That is, they usually present with breathlessness, edema, decreased urine output. Okay, and the second complication, the common complication is hypertensive encephalopathy. Hypertension is one of the common symptoms. Sign symptom in case of nephritis, AGN, or nephrotic syndrome. Sometimes in 10 to 20% of the patients, they may present with severe hypertension that cause encephalopathy. So the blood pressure is more than 95th centile of their age. These children usually present with severe headache, vomiting, blurring of vision, and even they may present with seizures and coma. And the last one, the third common complication is they may go into acute renal failure. And these usually these complications usually develop within a week. This occurs in early stage, and the acute renal failure they present with oliguria or complete and urea with electrolyte abnormalities and acidosis. And how you diagnose a case of acute glomerulonephritis is you have to say, as we say, that these children may have severe hematuria. So if they are already have borderline HB, whereas most of the kids have, they usually may develop severe edema, even the anemia that can cause failure. Okay, so we do the CBC. CBC shows what? CBC shows anemia, it decreased HB, and this decrease HB may be due to dilution. Where there is retention of water, this anemia may be dilutional anemia, or anemia could be due to severe hematuria. And CBC shows more increased TLC count. Most of the cases they may present with increased total leukocyte count. And other labs you have to do is you see in urea electrolytes they usually present with azotemia. So urea creatinine may be raised, and they may present with electrolyte abnormalities. Most common electrolyte abnormalities are hypercalcemia and hyperkalemia and hypocalcemia. And the diagnostic test is the urine DR. Urine DR shows what? It shows proteinuria, it shows hematuria, and the most important is the RBC and glomerular cast in the urine DR. Proteinuria is usually in the range of +1, +2, not more than +4. Okay, and other supportive features, as it is secondary to streptococcal infection, you may stand SOT titer, so that may be raised in case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis disease. And if ESR, basically, if you send ESR, that indicates the chronic disease only. C3 level. The important is the decreased complement, C3 complement level. So the basic diagnostic in the test is urine DR that shows proteinuria, hematuria, RBC cast or glomerular cast, and decreased complementary C3 level. And to support for post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, they may be raised AST titer. Okay. These other labs are only supportive, like CBC, electrolytes, urea. These are supportive investigations. Renal biopsy is not done in all the cases. Renal biopsy is required only for definitive diagnosis. Is only indicated when the patients are not improving after 3 to 4 weeks. There is persistent proteinuria, there is persistent hematuria, and they progress to rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, or in case of atypical presentations, including the massive proteinuria and nephrotics in the range of nephrotic range, or there is rapidly raised azotemia, there is rapidly raised creatinine, and the patient may goes in renal failure. Then these are some indications. And when you are suspecting rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, crescentic glomerulonephritis, or membranous glomerulonephritis, AG nephropathy, these are the indications. And these are the indications. These children usually present with atypical symptoms. If they have persistent hematuria, persistent proteinuria, even after 3 to 4 weeks, then you have to go for renal biopsy. But in case of average glomerular AGN post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, you don't need to have to go for biopsy directly. So the prognosis in acute glomerulonephritis usually have this is basically have a self-limited course with good prognosis. You only have to manage the patient symptomatically. If the child have happened like and 95% of the patients completely recover without any residue, but less than 5% of the patient may progress. They may have persistent abnormal urine analysis, or they may have persistent hematuria or persistent hypertension. In that case, we may need to do renal biopsy. So they may progress to chronic glomerulonephritis or rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Mortality rate is less than 1%, and the cause of mortality in most of the cases is they go into acute renal failure or hepatic encephalopathy. So the basic management in case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is basically symptomatic management. They need rest in the initial 2 to 3 weeks, daily activities, and they revert the daily activities when their gross hematuria get disappeared, edema decrease, and blood pressure get normal. Before that, they need rest for about 2 to 3 weeks. In diet, usually need salt restricted diet, no added salt, strict limited diet for hypertensive patients only. And if there is severe azotemia, they need to have decreased protein intake also. Antibiotic therapy, as in this is the most common cause of acute glomerulonephritis in children is streptococcal infection. So in case of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, you have to eradicate the streptococcal infection by oral antibiotic therapy for about 10 to 14 days. And the common is penicillin is indicated in non-allergic patients. Early antibiotic, but the most important point is that early antibiotic therapy does not affect the development of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Whether they use early antibiotic or not, this is an inflammatory process, so it is not affected by early use of antibiotic therapy. But you have to, when you are suspecting post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, then you have to eradicate the infection by giving antibiotics for about 10 to 14 days. Other management, if the child is hypertension, then you have to treat hypertension. In case of mild hypertension, only you have to monitor. But if there is persistent raised hypertension more than 90 centile, then initially you have to add diuretics and ACE inhibitors in children. But if there is moderate hypertension, then you may add calcium channel blockers like amlodipine. So it depends upon the degree of hypertension in children. In case of management of so basic management is you have to only follow the patient for hematuria. You don't need to do anything, but you have to check for the anemia. If the child have severe anemia and goes into congestive cardiac failure, you have to treat congestive cardiac by transfusing the patient and the use of diuretics and use of inotropic support. In case of hypertensive encephalopathy, then you have to treat severe hypertension. Then these children need immediate aggressive treatment with IV nitroprusside or hydralazine, because they need to decrease and rapid control of hypertension that cause encephalopathic signs. So it's an emergency. Hypertension encephalopathy is an emergency, and you have to treat it aggressively. If the child develop complication of acute renal failure, then you have to correct fluid and electrolyte imbalance and correct acidosis and wait and watch. If azotemia getting most of the time azotemia getting resolved within 3 to 4 weeks, but if azotemia persists, the child may need dialysis. So the basic management in case of AG and post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is the symptomatic management. Some diet restriction, fast restriction is basically no added salt, and thus the challenge in present with severe hypertension and azotemia, and then you need restricted diet. They need antibiotic therapy for eradication of streptococcal infection and treatment of symptoms like treatment of anemia, treatment of hypertension as needed, and the treatment of complication when they develop. So now we discuss about the nephrotic syndrome. We all discuss about the nephrotic syndrome, and the most common cause of nephrotic syndrome in children is AGN. Now, nephrotic syndrome is basically, this is a clinical entity. So it's a combination of symptoms that is characterized by, and the basic problem is the change in the glomerular capillary wall permeability, and there is effacement of the photosteps of glomerular capillary wall that cause increased leakage of protein. That is, they have massive proteinuria. Massive proteinuria leads to hyperalbuminemia, that's cause edema, and hyperalbuminemia or proteinuria leads to hyperlipidemia. And how it cause, we discuss later on. The incidence is basically, the incidence is 2 to 7 new cases per 10,000 of the population, and the age group of nephrotic syndrome particularly the typical nephrotic syndrome that is secondary to minimal change disease. The median age is 2.5 years. And for those who present with atypical symptoms and they have an underlying problem of focal segmental glomerulonephritis, the median age is 6 years. So typical nephrotic syndrome is the age group is 2 to 4 years. And for atypical nephrotic syndrome, the age group is more than is 6 years and more. More common in boys than girls, 3:2 ratio. And in less than 6 years, the age ratio is more towards the boys. But then the ratio is equal in older age group. AGN, but AGN is most common in boys. Familial incidence is present. European survey shows 63 cases of 1,877 nephrotic syndrome had their affected siblings. Familial nephrotic syndrome similar with respect to the histopathology. So, in case of familial nephrotic syndrome, they have the siblings have similar histopathology and steroid response. Initially, we thought that minimal change disease is more common. Let's say they said more than 85% of have minimal change disease, but later on, the study shows that focal segmental glomerulonephritis have a higher incidence than supposed to be. Glatti in 1999 reported a doubling of the incidence of focal segmental glomerular sclerosis over the historical controls. So, basic pathophysiology, they present with hyperproteinemia. Why? Because of loss of albumin in the urine. Then, along with albumin, there is loss of immunoglobulins, metal binding proteins, erythropoietin loss in the urine, transferrin, complement deficiency. Why? Because of the urinary loss and coagulation component. These are also the protein, they are lost in the urine in case of nephrotic syndrome. These all protein gets lost in the urine. So there is deficiency of albumin, there is decreased immunoglobulins in the body, there is decreased erythropoietin in the body, there is decreased complement in the body, and there is more coagulative factor, there is more thrombotic factors as compared to the control of the thrombosis. That leads to thrombosis more common in these patients. And why hyperlipidemia? When there is hypoproteinemia, there is loss of albumin in the body, liver try to produce more protein, and they produce lipids along with the proteins. That cause hypercholesterolemia, hypertriglyceridemia, low density lipoprotein, and very low density lipoprotein get increased. And mechanism in increased hepatic synthesis of low density lipoprotein, very low density lipoprotein in response to hypoalbuminemia. Liver try to form more this type of proteins. So there is hyperlipidemia in case of nephrotic syndrome. There is urinary loss of high density lipoprotein that is protective for the body. So they are more prone to get infected. The nephrotic syndrome patients, they are more prone to develop atherosclerotic disturbances. Enzymatic changes with abnormal lipid biosynthesis and degradation is also there. Edema, the most prominent feature in case of nephrotic syndrome, and it is due to low colloid osmotic pressure because of markedly decreased albumin. So there is decreased colloid osmotic pressure that leads to massive edema in case of nephrotic syndrome. But to some extent, water and sodium retention may play a role in this edema, but it is not confirmed. The basic pathogenesis behind edema is hypoalbuminemia. So most 90% of the children have a form of idiopathic nephritis. They do not have the underlying cause. And the underlying pathology is minimal change disease in case of 85% of the patient, mesangial proliferation in 5%, and 20% of the patient have focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. But the research shows that this percentage might get increased. It may be up to 20 to 35% of the patient. The remaining 20% have idiopathic nephrotic syndrome, and 10% of the patient have secondary nephrotic syndrome. They may have systemic underlying systemic disorder, membranous nephropathy, membranous glomerulonephritis, and this is the cause. They have nephrotic syndrome secondary to membranous nephropathy, secondary to membrane proliferative glomerulonephritis, or they may present with congenital nephritis. Approximately 90% of the children have idiopathic nephrotic syndrome, and these are the three I already told. These three disorders basically they may present the three separate diseases with different similar clinical presentation, because these three disorders they have different prognosis. Clinical manifestation of nephrotic syndrome is basically it appears between the age of 2 to 6 years, already told, but sometimes it has been reported as early as 6 months of age. But usually if a nephrotic syndrome is present in less than 1 year, it's most commonly it is a congenital nephrotic syndrome. It has a very poor prognosis. Minimal change, mesenteric minimal change disease is present in 85 to 90% of the patient in less than 6 years of age, and focal segmental glomerular sclerosis developed in older children. That is, if nephrotic syndrome is present in the 6 years of a child, the most likely the pathology in more of the cases is focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. More already mentioned, 20 to 30% of the adolescent, they only if nephrotic syndrome is adolescent, then 70 to 80% of the cases are due to focal segmental glomerular sclerosis or glomerulopathy. But only 20 to 30% have minimal change disease. But if nephrotic syndrome is present in the age group less than 6 years, 80 to 85% have minimal change disease. So if nephrotic syndrome is present in early age group, they have very good prognosis because of the underlying pathology. Children usually present with initially they present with myelodema, which is initially noted periorbital edema in the lower extremities. That is typically that going to progress with time. This is a typical picture of a nephrotic syndrome: periorbital edema, abdominal distension, abdominal wall edema, and edema over the limbs, lower limb and upper limb also. It may initially be misdiagnosed as allergic. Like I said, it's present like an allergic disorder. Swelling may be due to allergy. Because of the periorbital swelling that decreases throughout the day. This edema is more prominent when they wake up in the early morning, and this edema gets subsides, decreased to some extent with the passage of the time, with the passage of the day. With time, the edema becomes, but when the edema becomes generalized, then there is no decrease of edema throughout the day. When it becomes generalized, they may develop severe ascites, they develop pleural effusions and edema of the genitalia, and we usually call anasarca. Severe edema. Severe generalized edema is called anasarca. Atypical symptoms that they may be present with anorexia, irritability, abdominal pain, diarrhea, hypertension, and sometimes 10% of the cases may present with gross hematuria and hypertension. But the typical feature is edema without hematuria and hypertension. In case of nephrotic syndrome, your differential diagnosis, the child is the causes of generalized edema, and the common causes of generalized edema in children is protein malnutrition, protein losing enteropathy, hepatic failure, congestive cardiac failure, acute or glomerular, and AGN is one of the differential diagnoses of nephrotic syndrome. AGN, congestive cardiac failure, hepatic failure, protein losing enteropathy, and protein malnutrition. And one of the differential diagnoses in initial stages could be allergic reaction. So how you diagnosed? The typical diagnostic test is the urine DR. The simple urine DR analysis shows +4, +3, +4 protein urea. It is more than 40 milligram per meter square per hour. And the urine DR shows microscopic hematuria, or it shows increased WBC control in some cases. The typical diagnostic test is protein creatinine ratio, and the nephrotic range of protein creatinine ratio is more than 2. If you say a spot protein creatinine ratio and it comes up with 2, it is diagnostic of the nephrotic syndrome nowadays. You can start treatment on that basis. And finally, you may send 24-hour urinary protein to calculate the amount of protein loss. Then nephrotic range should be more than 3.5 gram per 24-hour in adults and 40 milligram per meter square per hour in children. That is the nephrotic range of protein urea in children. If you SAN 24-hour urinary protein, then what is the treatment? Most of the cases of typical nephrotic syndrome in children they may manage on the OPD basis, but the indication of admission in some of the new cases that the parents have anxiety, due to parent anxiety only, and treatment admission only need when there is severe edema, if the child is to have respiratory distress, the child may have complications, or there is severe anuria or oliguria, and in cases when you need biopsy in atypical cases, or whenever there is relapse with severe edema. These are the only indications of admission. Otherwise, you can manage nephrotic syndrome on OPD basis. Family education, family counseling is very important. So you have to discuss the precipitating relapsing factor like vaccination, infections. Usually infections cause a relapse. And for the diet management, dietary management, they usually need the protein intake should be normal, but there should be no added salt to prevent hypertension and to decrease edema. Okay, and the basic chunk of the management of nephrotic syndrome is the use of steroids. And you have, before starting a steroid, you have to discuss the side effects of a steroid. That this is what they may cause Cushingoid features, it causes severe gastritis, and it causes increased chances of infection. So you have to discuss before starting a steroid. You have to discuss the side effects of steroids with the parents. Okay. Albumin, albumin and Lasix. When this is only and only indicated whenever there is severe edema or severe anasarca, or there is severe SRS that cause respiratory distress, and whenever there is severe pleural effusion that cause respiratory distress, and there is severe albumin, then you have to infuse albumin along with the Lasix. So treatment, basic treatment of nephrotic syndrome is the use of steroids, prednisone, and it should be administered with the dose of 60 mg per meter square per day. And usually we have divided it into 2 or 3 days. Initially, it have to give for at least 4 weeks regularly for continuous steroid treatment regular for 4 weeks. And there is a good evidence that an initial 4 to 6 week course, 6-week course of daily steroid treatment, they have less chances of relapse. So 80 to 90% of the children, 80 to 95% of with typical nephrotic syndrome or with minimal change disease, they have very good response. They will respond to steroid therapy by 2 weeks. What is the responses? Good responses or remission? When you say remission, when you have negative, the urine is negative for protein for 3 consecutive days. We say that the child have response to steroid and go into remission. Then the vast majority of the children who will respond to prednisolone therapy will do so within. So most of the children, more than 90% of the cases of nephrotic syndrome, they respond within 4 weeks. When we call the remission, when there is no edema and urine is free of protein for 3 consecutive days, we call that the child is in remission now. And when we say relapse, then when the child develop remission and then again develop edema, or again the urine becomes positive for protein, at least 3 or more 7 consecutive days, then we say that the child, after receiving treatment, then we get the child is in relapse. Frequent relapse, more than 60, you say 40 to 60% of the patients have 1 or 2 episodes of relapse. What is frequent relapse? When there are more than 2 relapse within 6 months, or more than 4 relapse per year. It's called frequent relapsing. And when we say steroid resistant, when the child do not go into remission after treatment at least for 4 weeks of continuous prednisolone treatment, if the child do not go into remission, we call it as steroid resistant nephrotic patient. And what are the indications of biopsy in nephrotic syndrome? If the nephrotic syndrome is secondary to some systemic disorder, or when there is frequent relapsing nephrotic syndrome, when there is the steroid resistant nephrotic syndrome, when there is atypical signs like hematuria, severe gross hematuria, hypertension, and the child have azotemia, then these are the indications that you have to go for biopsy in case of nephrotic syndrome. Otherwise, you do not need biopsy. When there is resistant, or there is there is resistance, or there is a steroid dependency. What is a steroid dependency? When you start to taper off the steroids, then the child develops edema or proteinuria. That is called the steroid dependency. So in these cases, we need second line therapy. We usually give steroids for about continuous steroid therapy for 6 weeks. Then we slowly taper the steroids over 3 to 6 months. And studies showed that when you slowly taper the steroid over 6 months, then there are less chances of relapse as compared to those who have only 6 to 2 months of therapy and rapid tapering of the steroids. So basically, the basic treatment is the steroid. You have to do continuous 6 weeks therapy of the steroid that should be followed by tapering of the dose. Alternate days of a steroid therapy for next 2 months, and then slowly and gradually taper off steroid over next 4 to 6 over next over 6 months totally. So the treatment is around 3 to 6 months. Second line therapy, if the child do not show response steroid, when there is the child is shows resistant to steroid, or there is a steroid dependency, or in case of frequent relapses, then the child may need second line therapy. And what are the second line drugs? These are basically the immunosuppressive agents, including the cyclophosphamide, cyclosporin, clomiphene, trachilomas, and mycophenolate. And T cell stimulant into the levomizole also have a good role. So this is the basically second line therapy you may need in case of not even most of the cases, but only in those cases who are steroid resistant, steroid dependent, or those who have frequent relapses. If the child has first relapse, you do not need to go through second line therapy. You may continue with the steroid therapy. If the child initially is good steroid responder. The common complications in nephrotic syndrome is the steroid toxicity, that is Cushingoid features, headache. They may in the patient that sometimes they may develop glucosuria. So steroid toxicity, spontaneous bacterial peritonitis, because these children have low immunoglobulins level, low complement level, they may develop spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. They are more prone to develop infections. Then malnutrition, because of the deficiency of the protein, because of the loss of albumin, they are more prone to develop infections, and they are more prone to become they have more chances of thrombosis, as there is used the basic causes corticosteroids, and corticosteroids also affect the platelet activity that is related to thrombosis and the loss of coagulation factor in the urine and more thrombotic factors in the blood. That leads that these children are prone to develop thrombosis. And the one of the complication, the child, but it's very rare, is the acute renal failure. With hypoalbuminemia, they may develop hypovolemia, prerenal and develop prerenal azotemia. And find that one of the complication of nephrotic syndrome is dyslipidemia because of the formation of lipid by the liver. The prognosis is very good in case of minimal change disease, and eventually most of the children gets permanently normal. But in case of if the age group is more than 6 years and they have underlying pathology, not the minimal change in disease, and the child have atypical symptoms, then the prognosis is not good. The child may go into chronic kidney disease. They may develop chronic kidney disease in the future and may need renal transplant. And finally, we discuss the difference between what is the difference between the acute nephritis and the nephrotic syndrome. In acute nephritis, the basic characteristic is hematuria. Although they are hematuria, hypertension, oliguria, and edema, as compared to the nephrotic syndrome, they usually basically they have proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, and edema is more prominent in case of nephrotic syndrome. 90% of the patients are post-infective, and 10% have post-infective due to immune complex, and 10% have other causes. And in case of nephrotic syndrome, 90% of the patient have idiopathic cause. And they use acute in case of AGN due to post-streptococcal pulmonary they usually do not have multiple relapses. And but in nephrotic syndrome, relapses are much more common. And the basic pathology in case of acute nephritis is immune complex deposition, and in case of nephrotic syndrome, there is retraction of the epithelial fluid processes. In case of acute nephritis, urine shows albumin or proteinuria 1 plus and 2 plus, and hematuria and RBC cast. Whereas in case of nephrotic syndrome, urine basically shows high grade of proteinuria more than plus 3 plus 4 times. But usually they do not have RBCs. But in less than 10% of the cases, they may have RBCs. But they usually do not have glomerular or RBC cast. Most of the cases, of an acute nephrotic syndrome, they have raised urea creatinine as compared to in nephrotic syndrome. Most of the time, they usually do not have mesothemia. In some of the cases, the typical cases, in less than 10% or 5% of the cases, they may develop mesothemia, but it is rare as compared in case of acute glomerular nephritis. So this is basically the difference between the acute nephritis and the nephrotic syndrome. Okay. So any question, please? Any question? Ji. Yes. Question? What is the reference? The reference is of these slides of these presentation. This is the Nelson Book of Pediatrics and Parvez Akbar Kundi, Nelson, and this is usually and also from some websites that I'll send you later if you need by the email. Any question regarding the presentation?
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
मैडम क्लास आपकी एंड हो गई?
जी प्रेजेंटेशन एंड हो गई। अगर क्वेश्चंस हैं तो बता दें ताकि मैं आंसर्स कर दूं।
मैडम मेरे पास तो कोई क्वेश्चंस नहीं आ रहे, आपके पास अगर आ रहे हैं तो आप
नहीं, मेरे पास भी इस पे नहीं आ रहे होना तो।
ठीक है मैडम,
ठीक है जी,
ठीक है,
ओके
थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू,
जी, अल्लाह हाफिज।